leaders, and volunteers. As organizers, we made this possible by reaching out and personally connecting with individuals. And amid a global pandemic, this was huge. Right now in this module, we're going to be highlighting some of our best tactics teams utilize and examine how we plan to utilize these tactics to continue making gains here in 2021. So what worked for our teams in 2020? We'll be looking at two things that really worked for creating community and maximizing attendance and candidate support at events, which includes recruitment for events and making the most out of our communications. We'll be looping in leaders that have used these tactics to share their examples and experiences on their own team. This is a huge topic and we're going to move kind of fast, but do not worry, these sessions are being recorded for later viewing, and our organizing department is going to be working on these things all year with your teams. Neil is going to serve as my timekeeper and help us keep us rolling. So if you can't get your thoughts in, blame him, not me. Totally kidding, but if you do have questions, please put them in the chat and we'll hope to answer them at the end. And if not, I can definitely follow up this session with an email or two. With that said, let's get started. First, we're going to be talking about personally connecting with our volunteers. We all know that if we really want someone to show up to our events, we want to connect with them personally. And there's a couple of ways we can do that effectively. The best way to get folks to come to an event, whether it be phone banking or postcarding or fundraising, is reaching out personally. One way we do this is by inviting our own friends. One of the easiest ways to recruit folks for your events is asking those closest to you, friends and families, like-minded coworkers. Already having that established relationship makes a really easy ask. Sending a text message, forwarding an email invitation, and sharing on your personal social medias, all of these methods could bring in a handful of new attendees and possible future volunteers for your team. One example of a team doing this is Sister District Ann Arbor. Rachel and Caitlin worked together, and they did exactly this when recruiting for their GOTV phone banks. They reached out to their friends, families, and coworkers, and were able to increase the amount of attendees, which then increased the amount of dials they were able to make for their candidates during the ever important GOTV time. Another way that we do this is by volunteer recruitment with phone calls. We've always gone big on getting teams to adopt our volunteer recruitment by phone system, and we've made great strides this year related to teams creating phone outreach committees and adopting phone recruitment projects for major fundraisers, candidate events, reoccurring phone banks, team planning meetings, and other events. The issue here, though, is that it does take time to make the calls. It's not as easy as hitting send on an email. So it's been our job in the organizing department to make this process as simple and seamless as possible. And majority of our teams have adopted and ran with this and seen tremendous growth in event attendance. On this call, I'm really excited to introduce you guys to Michael Davis. Some of you may know him as our GOTV fellow from 2020. And he's here to talk a little bit more about his experience as a fellow and on our volunteer recruitment by phone systems.
Hey, Taylor, thank you so much for having me and inviting me. Again, my name is Michael Davis. I spent 2020 as an organizing fellow and a GOTV fellow at Sister District. I spent a lot of my time on the phone helping, recruit volunteers to build teams, also for fundraising and phone banking events. And with each call, it was important first to simply connect around values our volunteers share and their passion to build progressive power in the states. And volunteer recruitment on the phone may seem difficult at first if you're new to it. And honestly, I was new to it and it seemed difficult. But I learned really quickly that you have to have the confidence to make the ask that will best help the organization and our candidates, whether that's phone banking, fundraising, sharing Sister District with friends and family, as Taylor just mentioned. If you do that, these interactions aren't difficult at all. It's actually extremely fun and empowering. And our volunteers, especially new ones, without a lot of volunteer experience, they want to know what it's going to be like for them. Like, what will they do What kind of support and community will be there for them? What impact will they make? We know the answers to these questions. So being able to provide this information in a concise manner really helps bring them into what we're doing. It makes them feel comfortable. It makes them feel good. So in my experience, most volunteers responded with yes or maybe to at least one ask. You will find volunteers who want to commit when you talk to them on the phone. And for me, it meant so much to see volunteers we recruited on the phone end up leading phone bank teams, raising money, and bringing others into our community. It all started with a really simple connection, a really straightforward ask. And phone recruitment is just such a great way to get volunteers involved with our teams. And this last year, to be honest, it was really nice just talking to people on the phone all the time. So Taylor, again, thank you so much for letting me share my experience. It's such a pleasure to work with this organization and all of our amazing volunteers.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. And again, if you guys have any questions about volunteer recruitment by phone and what that entails, save them for the end of this call or this panel, and we'll have a Q&A at the end, or you can send your organizing manager or staff for an email. Another great way that our teams have been rallying their volunteers is by text message. Laith led this effort with our HQ phone banking program
asking you for help
during GOTV, but teams were also ahead of the game on this, just like Sister District California 3. Kelly is here from CA3. Would you mind sharing how your team utilized texting to recruit and engage with your volunteers?
Yeah, thank you. We've tried a lot of the things that you've talked about, but we're going to talk about something that that we started this fall. So as a prelude, our sister district CA3 group, which is in Northern California, ended up sending out 3.7 million texts for dozens of political campaigns in 2020. So we already had that, you know, deep background and experience and expertise. And so a small group of our text team volunteers decided to take that expertise and start intra-organization texting. I think Sister District calls it peer-to-peer. And we were motivated by our realization, this was back in August, that we had 100 days left. We realized that phone banking was the way we were going to make the biggest difference. And that was the area where we had the hardest time finding volunteers. So we text our members in order to drive volunteers to key events, to trainings, to phone banks, to fundraisers. We also text our members to capitalize on major events that happen. And it turns out we're also texting our members to build relationships and community. So a typical text has, you know, a salutation. It talks about has some urgent message, and then ends with a question. You know, are you in? Can you join this phone bank? Do you want to go to this meeting? And we have about a 20% response rate, which surprised our experienced texters, right? They weren't thinking that they were going to have to answer so many texts. And so we sent these texts primarily to get people signed up for call team trainings and phone banks. We opened, and I just kind of want to give you a little bit of, you know, the behind the scenes thing. We ended up opening an account with Through Text. I promise I don't have stock in the company. We signed up for a flat $100 fee. It turns out that it costs about 8 cents per text for Through Text, which is more expensive than other platforms. But we chose it because we were beginners and they had great customer service and they were always there to help us. So we're okay with that. So we typically text about 1,000 people and budget about $100 each for each text campaign. A team of 5 people learned the back end of texting, how to use the platform, how to write the initial text, and the canned replies. And in general, we do no more than 1 text outreach per week. Takes about 1 to 2 hours of prep time, writing the text and replies, preparing, importing, and cleaning data. And then 1 hour on a Zoom call with 4 to 5 team members who collaborate, they send the initial text, they problem solve, and we write new replies because we are never, we can never anticipate all of the questions. After that, we reassign text to 1 to 2 people who monitor until the event. And they especially monitor in the hour prior to the event because that's when a lot of questions popped up. So an unexpected benefit of doing this ourselves, we have taken advantage, for example, of Sister District Project doing this for us for a fundraiser. But one of the advantages of us learning to do this ourselves is the community building that happened. We were surprised by the 20% response rate. And I know that you experienced texters are probably surprised by it as well. It turns out that a lot of people want to have a conversation. They want to commiserate about an event. They want to ask a question, not always related to the event at hand. And then sometimes they want to celebrate, and sometimes they want to celebrate after the event. So having that opportunity, especially in the middle of a pandemic, was really important. I would say an unexpected benefit part 2 was that it added to our political skills. And some of us have then gone on to help local campaigns with it. And kind of a surprise finish here is I ended up running for office myself, and a small group helped me text. It was key to the win because it was a kind of a low interest, huge number of voters community college trustee race. And so having those skills is awesome. And now I'm eager to help other people set up their own text campaign and not have to pay a consultant bajillions of dollars for it. So that's the quickie.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Kelly. In awe of all that you guys are able to accomplish there at CA3. And I want to remind folks that this is a great option to share with your volunteers that are interested in texting for candidates. Sometimes those opportunities are scarce, but having them, signing them up to send your volunteer reminder text messages or recruitment text messages is a great way to reshift those folks.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I have to say this because I didn't realize that Linda Cloud was here today. I have to say, I didn't do this. This was a great team from our organization that, put in the time to learn this skill. So just wanted to give a shout out to Linda Cloud and others who are on this call.
Yeah, thanks so much, Linda and Kelly. Next, I want to talk about Welcome Wagon. Welcome Wagon leaders are also crucial to the volunteer recruitment process. Most often, these are the first sister district volunteers that are reaching out and bringing these new signups into the loop. Here to talk more about their process and experience is Welcome Wagon extraordinaire Jane from DCVA MD.
Thanks, Taylor. Hi, everyone. I'm Jane Garrido. I'm with the DC, actually recently DC, Maryland, Virginia chapter. So I'll explain that there's throughout all of 2020, we had 2 people that were tasked with sending the Welcome Wagon emails. We wanted to make sure we were following up with people within a few days of them signing up to volunteer with Sister District. Although at different times, sometimes the folks who are tasked with this could end up getting really busy and needed to step back. So Sister District headquarters sends an alert every time a new volunteer signs up. We had about 5 or 6 people on our team getting those messages so that if, the folks who normally handle it had to step back for a while, we could easily make sure that someone else could take on that task. But for most of 2020, it was myself and my colleague, Ben Schiffman. Ben lives in Washington, D.C., and I live in Arlington, Virginia. So the way we divided up the Welcome Wagon emails is that Ben handled new volunteers who joined in D.C., and I handled those in Virginia in the hope that we could build connections with volunteers, in our areas, thinking down the road to the future when we are able to host events in person once again, and plan to do events in DC and in Virginia. So our welcome wagon message in 2020, we try to keep it brief because we know folks don't read long emails. So we started off with, welcoming folks to our chapter, one sentence about the great work we did in 2019 supporting candidates in Virginia, one sentence about the great candidates we were supporting in Pennsylvania, and then followed by bullet points of action items that the volunteer could do right now to get involved with the chapter. And so this we would update periodically based on what events we had coming up. Although we had recurring phone banks, so we always included a link to join our phone banks. And if we had a fundraiser planned, then we would include information about the fundraiser there. And then we would close the welcome wagon email by asking the volunteer what they were interested in doing. Are they interested in phone banking, in fundraising? Do they have other ideas for how they can help? And we would keep track of all of the responses. So Sister District Headquarters sets up Google Sheets for all of our teams where new volunteer signups are added. So we use that sheet to keep track of, make sure that we had sent messages to all the new volunteers and take notes on what folks had responded with. And that was really helpful down the road when we needed to recruit additional volunteers for phone banks or wanted to reach out to folks about fundraisers. We were able to send some more targeted, personalized emails or make phone calls to those folks. So it was great to have that information. I guess I'll close off by saying we didn't get responses to the vast majority of our messages. I think at any given month, maybe we would get 2 or 3 volunteers who actually responded, but those folks who did turned out to be gems of volunteers. So it was a great opportunity for us to connect with folks who would become really active members in our chapter. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Jane. And just wanted to give you guys a heads up with our migration to Action Network, we are going to change those new member notifications to only include organic signups. So those will be the folks that you'll have the most opportunity to convert to those good volunteers that show up willing to sign up for things. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out for us, Jane. And on this subject, I would also like to talk about creatively reshifting our volunteers. I want to take some time to highlight Sarah Teeterman, who is from Sister District Marin. Once we are able to start personally connecting and establish those relationships with individuals, we're able to then have that relationship with them to then shift them into something that they may not have said yes to previously. And so Sarah is here to talk about her postcarding group that they turned into fundraisers as well.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? I was having a little trouble with my sound. Okay. So you'll notice I'm wearing my ears, and that's part of what I did the entire time that we were on Zoom so that the people who were in our Zoom group could recognize me. And you'll notice that I'm wearing a blue shirt, and I have been wearing this blue shirt for 4 years. And I just mentioned those things because they're little things that I found helped me have my uniform, that helped me to feel like I could do this work. And I'm sure everybody has those, but I think that those little things are important. And I want to tell you, we wrote 250,000 postcards last year, which was huge. But the bigger thing was that we got some of our postcarders to text, to make phone calls, and to donate in huge amounts. And there's some people on this particular Zoom who helped with that. So I want to say thanks to Linda and Holly and some other folks who I know were on here. Maureen, I think, is on here. We had originally a group that met at different cafes once a month or twice a month. And we were very consistent about that. So we built this network of people who got to know one another. When we went to shelter in place, we were not sure how we would continue to have community. and we started Zooming, and we tried to do Zooms every week. We decided we needed to do Zooms every week. And within that, we started to think, how are we going to get postcards out to people? I don't want all of these 200 people coming to my house to get postcards. So one of the wonderful things of our group is that we're blessed with a group of women over the age of 65, retirees, who are amazing and had a lot of skills. And one of them suggested we should have team leaders. We ended up with 22 team leaders, which is why we were able to write 250,000 postcards. And those team leaders then could work to convey to their teams the importance of fundraising. So one of the things that we did with fundraising, in addition to these team leaders planting the seed with their teams, is that we had a very special Zoom with Taylor. And she came and talked to our group and explained the importance of the race and on our Zoom call. And that personal connection with Taylor, people just loved meeting Taylor. It was very inspirational. And then we had before this, we had emails, communications with our team. And afterwards, we had email communications with our team. And the team leaders amplified those. And then we also had Facebook messages about this. And I think the thing, but I can't emphasize it enough, there's this ability to take what Taylor was doing and amplify it, because we had this team in place that had been built over the 4 years and that since the election, and really went into action when we went to shelter in place. So I think does that answer the question, Taylor? I think there was something else I was supposed to say.
No, that's great. Yeah, we just are very excited to see the work that you and Barb put into your postcarding group, able to expand their horizons a little bit into texting, maybe calling, and then donating to hit those important fundraising goals.
And we don't actually know even how much we raised. We know that we raised a lot of money, but people kept like spreading it to their friends. It was very organic.
Yeah, just incredible. And I'm hoping to get Sarah to write a case study for this in the future to share with other leaders. But thanks so much for being here today, Sarah. And I want to remind folks that another, again, creative reshifting is for volunteers that really want to text for your candidates. Get them to sign on to sending those volunteer recruitment text messages as well. Next, I really want to talk about making the most out of our communication. With the addition of Ariana this election cycle and her social squad, Teams communications and social media really amplified and highlighted all the successes your teams were accomplishing and the fun that they were having along the way. From email newsletters to Instagram features, teams were able to cut through the noise and not only build, but celebrate the sister district community. One of the first examples of this is going to be those email newsletters and updates. Last year, we saw tons of great emails being sent, from all volunteer newsletters to the specialized phone banking and fundraising updates. Emails are a great way to share the news of all the good work your team is doing. Here with us today is Sister District South Bay leader Lisa, who is going to share some tips and tricks that she's used to make the most of her email blasts, including volunteer spotlights.
Thank you, Taylor. Well, before the election, we had twice monthly memos, and of course we posted a lot to Facebook. But after the election, we were worried. We really wanted to keep up our communications with our members, and we were concerned about what we could include, since we didn't have many events. So our social media captain, Maria Genzel, came up with the idea of highlighting our volunteers. It turned out to be a fantastic idea, because we learned so much about each other that we didn't have time to during the election. We were also busy, and of course with the pandemic, we couldn't get together. So what we did was come up with a questionnaire, maybe 10 questions, and we sent it out to various volunteers, asked them to answer them, and then return it to us. So it was a really quick and easy way to create an article for our weekly newsletters. And we included a photo of them that Maria turned into a really nice headshot, and added them to the newsletters. And it's turned out to be a really good feature because we get to know about each other and also know about the different skills a lot of our volunteers had that we didn't realize. Like one of our volunteers, Mary Danko, was a teacher of the deaf, and maybe sometime down the line, these skills will be very useful for fundraisers and other things that we want to do. I will include some URLs to the newsletters that we have highlighting our volunteers in a chat box, so you can take a look at them.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Lisa. Another great way teams have made the most of their communications is by keeping their team pages up to date with their latest successes and celebrating their chapter members. Faith, on the next slide, yeah, here is a screenshot from the Sonoma West County team's webpage. They not only keep their website up to date with upcoming events, fundraisers, postcarding, or phone banking opportunities, but they highlight their volunteers. After the election, they updated their page to share the win about Shay Roberts, who is now a state representative in Georgia, but also to celebrate Karen Walker. Karen has been a volunteer with the team since they started with Sister District and was awarded for all of the work and service she's put forth for their team. This not only serves as an opportunity to help build the community within your team, but to offer a glimpse of the community to a brand new sign up or volunteer that may be interested in getting involved. And then again, with the addition of Ariana this past year and the start of the social squad, team social media presence has absolutely boomed. Not only is it fun to see the happenings from teams across the country, but it's even better to see the heartfelt shout outs to Sister District captains and super volunteers. Speaking of Rockstar Sister District volunteers, Mara from Sister District Wisconsin is going to share how they really ramped up and utilized social media to amplify their team's work.
Well, hello, welcome to from the frozen tundra of Wisconsin. It's about 0 degrees here, so I'm happy to see all of you. So first of all, I'd like to say that I am not a social media guru by any stretch of the imagination. I have taken on this task with 2 of my colleagues. So the way we have it figured out is we have one person doing Instagram, I do Facebook, and we have somebody else doing Twitter. And what I've realized is that in Wisconsin, we have the whole state, so we have to kind of bridge the distance. We also have an issue where we started in the middle of the pandemic. So connecting people to each other has been really challenging. So what I have done, like it sounds like many of you have too, is highlighted our volunteers. And so the benefit of doing that is that, it connects the faces of our organization to the outside world. We have a lot of people ask us, are you even volunteers? Are you just part of the Sister District? Is this somebody getting paid from Sister District? So it puts a face to the name. Having, like I said, we just started the group this year. It's been able to connect the faces to the names that we see on our emails, which has really helped. And it's allowed our work to spread out into the community. So when we highlight our volunteers, they share that on our social media. So what we've done is we ask our volunteers if we can tag them in our posts. So Instagram has actually worked really well for us. And so we tag them, and then they've been able to share that on their posts with their network of people. And actually that's how we end up getting the majority of our likes on our social media. And so I also think, like, understanding that most of us have a limited time that we can dedicate to our social media. So we want to make the most of what the time we have. So I think, like I said, doing these posts about your volunteers, and I basically just sent them one question: why did you do this? Why do you do Sister District? And then I kind of script the rest based on what I've seen them do and the benefits that they've brought to our organization. And I also feel like people's own words matter because they share it in the way that they feel like it matters instead of me scripting everything. So I like to highlight the variety of volunteers that we have so people can see the depth of work that we do. But I also like to see many of our volunteers have either been recruited by someone else or they've recruited other people. So I think sharing that message in the social media is helpful as well, because it shows that these kinds of things matter, right? When you share the information about what you're doing on social media, it does have an effect. And so I think we can have like the most effective messaging possible with the limited time that we do have with our volunteer hours. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mara. And I really want to stress on the fact that all of these volunteer spotlights and social media spotlights are a great way not only to celebrate volunteers, but to also offer that glimpse to the public of what it means to be a part of Sister District and the community you gain when you sign up and volunteer with us. But with that, I'm wondering if anyone has questions that we can answer during the remaining 10 minutes or 9 minutes we have before our next break.
Yeah, I'll just say there have been some questions in the chat, and one question here from Holly I think is a good one. Groups that have worked with a sister district team from out of state because of the benefits of virtual organizing, what do we do with them when we go back to in-person organizing? Taylor, what are your thoughts? I can chime in too.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that phone banking should stay virtual for forever. Just seeing the immense impact growth that we've seen from this virtual setting. So yeah, keep your phone banks virtual with teams that are out of state, or as in Mara's case, they have a statewide team. So you're able to still have that community set in place for phone banking going forward.
Yes, great. And then there's also this question, Mariah, how do we reach younger folks? Again, happy to.
Yeah, well, as a younger person, I think social media is a great way to get folks' attention. Younger folks are always scrolling on something, so having that presence on Facebook and on Instagram is just a great way to extend your reach a little bit. But we'll also have some great information coming out about how to build partnerships with groups as well. That's something that we're really excited to roll out. And so that's a great way to reach some other demographics that you may not already be reaching.
There's another question from Amy about like how do you grow your ranks? How do you keep people coming back to a thing?
Yeah, Sarah, I would love to throw that question to you, Sarah Tiederman from Marin. Since you guys have been able to keep that postcarding group intact and then creatively reshift them, how have you gotten everybody to stick together?
That's a really good question. And I was partially responding to Deb Garby because she was asking, have you been doing this for 4 years? No, we haven't. But there are like Linda, who's on here, and a couple of others of us started 4 years ago with Swing Left Marin. And then in 2019, we joined with Sister District Marin. But in between that time, there are a lot of people who've been working like with the Marin DIMS. And I think one of the things that's been really an indivisible in this area, and I think one of the things that's been really effective about the work in this area is that there's been a real commitment by people like Linda, who've been at the leadership level, to try to get people to work across different organizations and collaborate, not try to have territory. And now I've forgotten the original question, which was how do you get all those people, right?
To keep coming back, yeah.
Coming back, okay. So I wore the ears. We did this. We had little signs. We had, we started meeting in 2019 at cafes, and we would have little signs, not too dramatic, and they were always positive. They weren't like dump Trump, we hate Trump. It was Sister District Marin, and positive signs. And then we, because that was what just tended to resonate better with our group. It wasn't because, so that was what resonated, the positive. Making it fun, making it lighthearted, trying to give people ownership. So we started at one cafe, we expanded past that cafe, moved to a bigger bigger venue at Gott's Roadhouse. We were a little worried that the people at Gott's would get upset with us because we started dominating the place so much. And so we started talking to them and they're like, this is great, just buy something. So, there was food, there was fun. As Linda was saying, we had fun at our Zoom meetings and our in-person meetings. We also, we had some people who were very comfortable being characters and just being loud and out there. And that was really helpful for the people like me who are a little shy and felt anxious about being part of this. And then the big thing that really made a difference though was when we went to the team system when we went to shelter in place. And then we had 22 very powerful women who each had their own teams, and they did it in their own way to try to get people involved and get people engaged. And we didn't try to micromanage too much what they were doing. And but we tried to talk, our message is positive, our message is collaboration, our message is supportive, and so gave people ownership, fun and ownership.
Yeah, I think that's great. And one thing that I would like to mention is you guys kept holding those meetings at the same time every week, every Thursday. People knew, hey, it's Thursday morning, I need my cup of coffee, and then I'm going to join Sarah and Barb's postparting group. And I think those reoccurring events had a huge impact on the impact we saw coming out of 2020. Those reoccurring phone banks, reoccurring postparting meetings really made the difference in event size and field impact too.
Yeah, and I would text people and say, are you coming to the meeting? And then they didn't want to leave me hanging. They didn't want to make me feel lonely.
Exactly. I love it.
Text reminders. Yes, very important. We just have three minutes left, but I did want to let people know that the next 10 minutes, there's a break. And if you want to stay and talk shop with us, you can. Let's see. There's a question about recruiting men. Taylor, you want to take that one?
As I am not a man, I will let you take that one, Neil.
Yeah, here's the deal. Just ask them. Like anything else, you got to ask. You got to connect. You have to make it personal, and you have to connect in a way that where you reach the shared values that you have, and get to what's in it for them. Like anyone else. And then if you're a wife of a man who won't do anything, I think you could be like, hey, you didn't take the trash out for like 4 weeks. You owe me. Come to the phone bank.
That is the type of social pressure I love to see. Any other questions folks have? It's a great time to not only pick Neil's and I's brain, but other chapter leaders too.
Can I say something about text reminders? Text reminders is a perfect job. So in organizing, we oftentimes think about the ladder of engagement. Someone shows up as a phone banker for the first time. We run our program well. They keep coming back, and then we ask them to be a co-host, right? And so they move up a rung, and then we ask them, hey, we need someone to send text reminders the morning of our phone bank. Can that be you, right? And then they move up a rung. So text reminders are a perfect kind of like first step up the rung. So think about who your near leaders were from last year, the people who were showing up at the phone banks. Go to them over the next month or two and get them plugged into a role. Say, hey, you were coming all the time. You're a veteran now. You're a real important part of the community. Can I ask you to send text messages every morning that we have an event? It'll take you about a half an hour. We'll show you how to do it.
Yeah, Sarah.
I just wanted to add one thing that I was thinking of as Neil said this. One thing that we did that was also very successful is that we looked at people in our group who were doing things like, oh, we have this wonderful texter, and we asked her to come to a meeting and teach everybody how to text. And we had Barb come and teach us how to phone bank over and over. And we had, people from within our team who, and Laura, she threw these little parties for her neighborhood. And so we're like, come talk to us about how you throw your parties. So in our Thursday Zooms, we would highlight what some of our members were doing that were involving other people.
Yeah, I love that. And I see a lot of conversation in the chat around transitioning folks into phone bankers. It can be done. Sarah knows it can be done. And if you have any question or concern over this, I highly recommend attending Neil's phone banking breakout tomorrow. He'll have some of our expert phone banking leaders on there that will be able to prove you wrong in your fear of getting people to phone bank.
And use Taylor and I and our colleague Leif liberally. You need someone to come and make the case to people that we really encourage them that in addition to doing one tactic, we really encourage them to try at least devoting a little bit of time to another tactic. Have me come, I will make the case. I'm good at this. I'm not good at a lot of things in life, but for whatever reason, I'm good at this thing. Use me. Same with Taylor. I just want to let everyone know that this session is officially over. So if you want to take a break, go ahead. Reminder that you need to join the main sessions again with the main session Zoom link that's listed on the sisterdistrict.com/summit page that I've just put in the chat. But if you want to stay here and talk shop, let's do it. And you can go off mute too at this point. I think feel free to if you want to say something.
I was going to just add something about phone bank is I think it's really easy to get in a negative loop around that. Like no one wants to do it. That's the way it is. And I was looking through our old numbers. We did we were basically like at, I think the most we've done in any year is 8,000 calls. And then this year we did 120,000 calls. And it's, first of all, is just letting people know over and over again that it's their most effective tool, especially this year when there was no canvassing, right? And the other one is building community. And our call leaders were great at this. We had some initial outreach for anyone who ever checked a box about phone banking ever got a long phone call. We did initial training. We chatted. When people came in, they were always greeted. We resisted the urge to get straight to business. We always had a 10-minute, in a 2-hour phone bank, a 10-minute chat at the beginning, a mid, phone bank, 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes at the end. And that was a chance where people really got to know each other and weirdly develop online friendships. And so having the same phone banks, the same time, the same hosts, it's really community that brings people back. And that was reinforced by an email right after the phone bank. This is how much we did. This is awesome, etc.
Kelly, you got it. And again, just a shout out to our phone bank panel tomorrow morning at 11:20 a.m. Pacific. I'll be running that with 4 of our great phone bank leaders. We're going to talk about this very thing. And I just want to say, I just put into the chat that just to underline this point, because it's so important, whether you're adopting a phone bank program this cycle, maybe your team isn't able to stand it up, or whether you're hosting a recurring phone bank this cycle, it's so important to have that the cadence. Everyone knows they can show up, people become friends, people learn together, you celebrate together, and it just builds and builds and builds. And remember, in organizing, folks, it's not where you start. You may start with like 3 people, right? But you take little steps at a time. And that's what organizing is all about. You grow a little bit at a time. And if your focus is on community and togetherness and working together, you will grow. You will grow.
Yeah, Linda. Uh-oh, you're on mute.
What we did also before we had our own phone banks is, as Sarah mentioned, we collaborated a lot with other groups. So Democracy Action Marin was running their weekly phone banks. And since it was virtual, they would open a breakout room for us. And when we were just starting out, and we, none of the leaders really had bandwidth or whatever to why reinvent the wheel when someone else is doing it really great over there. So that's how we started. And then as, the election season geared up and there was more and more to do, we wound up having our own, hosting our own. But that's how so that's another really great way to start, is if you have someone else that you collaborating, friendly with, whatever, approaching them and say, hey, will you support our work as well? So that.
Linda, that's a great point. And part of the work that the organizing department, Taylor and I and Leif are going to do over the next 2 months, is to prepare and understand sort of which teams and affiliates in our system will want to adopt, which teams and affiliates in our system will want to run a program. And then when we have candidate assignments, we can do some matchmaking and really optimize. So last year, the Portland team ran a weekly phone bank for 2 North Carolina candidates, and other teams with those candidates were able to just jump in. And you're going to hear about that a little bit tomorrow at the session.